It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
And welcome to episode number 55 of the Rob Carson Show podcast. Hello. You can check out the new website, robcarsonshow.com. Facebook page is also Rob Carson Show. Twitter feed is Rob Carson, and I do the Twitter thing kind of reluctantly. I'm not a big fan of the whole tweet thing, and from what I hear, financially, the company isn't going to be around much longer anyway. Kids have already moved on to Instagram, to Snapchat, and have kind of left Twitter in the rearview mirror, like many of them have done with Facebook. Although Facebook is still wildly popular, particularly with people my age. I'm a middle-aged guy, and I like it. And you know what? The interesting thing about Facebook, it has become the scrapbook of our lives. It really has. Think about that. Every day, I look on my Facebook, and there's 5 years ago, 7 years ago, and it's like, oh yeah, it's a scrapbook that reminds you of what was in your past. It's kind of, starting off a little bit esoteric here today, but it is kind of cool. So if you do political rants every day, you can see how big a douchebag you were 4 years ago. Or 5 years ago, look, here's what I made for dinner 6 years ago. I think I'll repost that because it's so interesting. Anyway, I have made my mistakes on Facebook. Don't get me wrong. I have a private Facebook page that I just put nice stuff up, inspirational stuff up, food porn, and then there's the Rob Carson Show Facebook page, which is a hodgepodge of all sorts of stuff, and I think you'll enjoy it. So. Just a little news about what's going on this end. I'm working with a guy named Sam Cangelosi, a brilliant graphic artist in the Kansas City area, and it's very fortuitous because we just I heard from someone named Rob Vota. I was looking for a graphic designer to do the banner for my iTunes page, which is coming soon, and he said, hey, I know this guy. And this guy has already done a bunch of politically incorrect T-shirts and things like that. And I've been wanting to launch this line of politically incorrect T-shirts and hoodies and tanks and little onesies for your baby and toddler shirts. And they're fantastic. His designs are fantastic with my slogans as a syndicated comedy writer. I think they're really, really sweet. So they will be. You will have the chance to check them out on robcarsonshow.com. And I tell you, you're going to love them. And they're not all just political. There's some really, some of them are just funny. And some of them are just, they're cool. They're cool. All right, so let's start off with the two big stories of the day, the two very big stories of the day. One of them is the terror attack in London. One of them is the ongoing story out of Maryland, Montgomery County, Maryland, where I lived for 9 years and sent my kids to Montgomery County schools. And there is a serious problem with illegal immigration in Montgomery County. And as I've said before, that the wholesale allowance of people to stream in from the southern border be caught and then released with the promise to appear before a magistrate has wreaked havoc on the country. Okay? I've said this for a while. If you release these people wholesale into the country, that bad things are going to happen. And I've got some big news, because the one thing that Montgomery County did in the state of Maryland, in classic state of Maryland fashion, 14-year-old girl raped by an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old man, raped and sodomized, forced to perform oral sex, traumatized for life. Illegal immigrants. What does Maryland do a few days after this horrific incident happens at a Maryland high school? Rather than siding with the parents who are concerned, rather than siding with the parents who had a massive meeting about this and said, we want safety, not sanctuary, Maryland has decided to become a sanctuary state. Democratically controlled House of Delegates voted 83-55 to okay the Maryland Law Enforcement and Trust Act generally. It would bar state and local enforcement from helping federal immigration officials seek illegals, including requests to detain inmates for deportation. This is standard practice with leftists. The House of Delegates and the General Assembly, they call it the General Asylum, and I think you can see why. This is how liberals behave. When 9/11 happened, the former president, I'm not saying necessarily George Bush is a liberal, but people like him and particularly others on the left immediately thought the worst of us. Immediately thought that you and I, as Americans, would lash out at Islamics. Okay? They thought you and I, because, a bunch of hillbillies, a bunch of redneck yahoos, forgetting the fact that we are sons and daughters of immigrants, but they thought the worst of us. And so they immediately took all the blame off of a part of the Islamic faith and put it on the people of the country. And there were the supposed hate crimes and all this. It never happened. Well, I think the United States has been enormously tolerant. The sponsor is a leftist radical Democrat, Maurice Morales of Montgomery County. By the way, the Maryland House Democrats' Twitter account said the law promotes understanding and respect between our communities and law enforcement. No, it doesn't. The governor said the Maryland House of Delegates tonight passed an outrageously irresponsible bill that will make Maryland a sanctuary state and endanger our children. This legislation would interfere with our state and local law enforcement ability to cooperate with federal law enforcement authorities. I will veto this dangerously misguided legislation the moment it reaches my desk. Hear. And this is why he has a 65% approval rating. Senator Michael Huff, Republican from Frederick County, which has struggled with MS-13 crime, added that the legislation turns Maryland into a sanctuary state for illegal aliens who have committed crimes. Law enforcement cannot coordinate with DHS. He said that this legislation has been floating around, and he's saying that Trump derangement syndrome is helping push the bill this year. And if you listen to the sponsor of the bill, pardon my clearing my throat, Maurice Morales, she says, and she said in a hearing in February, that Maryland needs the legislation because of President Trump's effort to increase deportations of criminal illegals. Imagine that. Criminal illegals wanting to deport them. Though she wouldn't use his name, she referred to Trump as the executive of this country, which will remain nameless for now as far as I'm concerned. Trump derangement syndrome. In addition to Maryland, California is taking steps to become a sanctuary state, and Rhode Island and Connecticut have issued similar rules over agencies it controls. Jessica Vaughn, the policy director at the Center for Immigration Studies, says, I can't imagine how any lawmaker in their right mind in Maryland. Oh, well, you see, there aren't any politicians in their right mind, particularly, of those on the left side in Maryland. They're not in their right mind politically, and they're not in their right mind psychologically. Could support a sanctuary policy after all that has happened here, especially after the influx of illegal alien youths and families from Central America, which swept in a whole generation of gang members who've been terrorizing immigrant communities. Montgomery and Prince George's County in particular have become safe havens for all manner of criminal aliens who should be sent back to their home country instead of allowed to stay here in defiance of our laws. Wow, common sense, imagine that. She added, it's a disgrace that the Maryland Assembly is working harder for illegal aliens than it is for Marylanders who are harmed by illegal immigration. When I lived in Maryland, I had a friend who was hit by an illegal, who was drunk, no driver's license, no insurance, was told to show up for court, never did, disappeared. When I was in Maryland, my home was broken into by 5 illegals. They ransacked the place. They stole all sorts of stuff. They were arrested. They were found. We got some of my wife's jewelry back. They were told to appear for a court date, and they disappeared into the ether of society. And they're most probably still there. Still there. I had mentioned, I was on KMOX last night, and I had mentioned that the Obama administration's and the Gang of Eight started the influx of massive amounts of illegals into the country. Before that, between 2009 and 2014, or 2013, Mexicans flowing into the country had actually There were more leaving than coming in because the economy sucked. And then the Gang of Eight happened. And then it was an open border. And the only thing, by the way, the only thing that brought this many people to the country is a policy, clear and direct, well communicated to those in Central and South America. I wouldn't have doubted that money was used to promote this in those countries to come to the United States. You will be released. Meanwhile, in one dying throw of the Obama administration, they stopped the wet foot, dry foot policy from Cuba. They stopped it completely. So if you come here from Cuba, you're sent back immediately. See, this is the love. This is the love and the romance of the Democrat Party and the Communist Party, and the leadership in Cuba, the Castros. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. Open door immigration policies put in place by the Obama administration were cited in the cause of this rape of a 14-year-old student inside a Maryland high school by two illegals. This, according to the head of the Border Patrol Union. Okay? These guys have been screaming this stuff for years. Brandon Judd, the president of the National Border Patrol Council, cited the former administration's catch and release program for letting two illegals charged into the rape in the United States. Senate testimony yesterday, he said, had we done our job, that 13-year-old girl, 14-year-old girl would have never been raped, period. That's all there is to it, and it's true. Lawyer for the oldest, 18-year-old Henry Sanchez Millan of Guatemala, which does have a rape culture, claimed that the sex was consensual. Really, you don't usually have that much blood. Police claim they have a strong case for rape. Jose Montano, 17, of El Salvador, was also charged. He's a minor. No other details of the case have been released. Homeland Security officials said that Sanchez Millan crossed the border in Texas, was caught and released. They have little other information on that. He caught in and released. That was policy. That was policy. You just disappear into, and hell, we'll even buy you a bus ticket. We might even buy you a plane's ticket. And they did, and they did, and they did. And I said this, when this was happening, anybody with a lick of common sense would have known this was going to happen. Remember when Donald Trump said this?
Has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people. It's coming from more.
No, and what people garnered from that, what the left garnered from that is Donald Trump. And they did it only to be inflammatory. They did it only to cause a controversy, to distract from the real problem that had been created by this. So just like Donald Trump saying there are 7 countries, now 6 countries, where there needs to be extreme vetting for Islamic terrorism, and they are screaming that the president does not want Islamic people to come into the country. The same thing happened here. All Mexicans are rapists.
In Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's coming probably from the Middle East.
Okay. And as I just said, these two men who allegedly raped this girl came from Central America. Here's the media response to Donald Trump's comments then.
When you say that immigrants from Mexico are criminals and rapists, isn't that spreading hate? The things that he considers just blunt talk, it is clearly offensive.
I'm outraged, Michaela. I can't understand how is it possible that a presidential candidate for the who wants to be president of the United States can speak and use hate language.
The natural reaction is to think he's a clown, let's ignore him. Say something derogatory to a Latino, and they accept it. That is the disrespect that the Latino community felt. That's what bubbled up in social media.
That's because you said it. That's because you said it. That's because you're the one who said that Donald Trump called all of them rapists, and he did not. Statistic this is from Texas, okay? This is from the Border Patrol in Texas. 36% of all federal sentences in 2015 were given to illegal aliens. including convictions for drug trafficking, kidnapping, and, yes, murder. Between 2013 and 2015, despite the dangers, the Obama administration had released 86,288 criminal illegal aliens right back into the general U.S. population. I was reminded of this on the Sean Hannity show the other night. And these were statistics that I had and others had months ago, a year ago, when we were saying that the DACA program combined with the catch and release program were bringing illegal aliens in here wholesale and releasing them. And we said it. They were held briefly. They were told, meet with a judge, and then be on your way. We'll even pay your bus ticket, your train fare, your airline fare, whatever it takes. And there you go. And off you go. Many of you have criminal backgrounds. Many of you have tuberculosis, among other things. That didn't stop anything. Here's a little bit from Sean Hannity's program the other day. He spoke with some Border Patrol agents in Texas about the criminal element coming in from the southern border.
Criminal aliens have been responsible for about 642,000 criminal offenses.
Governor, I've been down to the border 8 times now. 8 times. And I'm learning things here today that I never knew of. And I like to consider myself pretty informed on this issue. 642,000 crimes in 7 years have an orchestra that we have brave men and women that are literally using military tactics to fight what they consider to be cartels.
Yep.
642,000 crimes committed against Texans alone. Then between 2011.
And by the way, somebody said that I was on KMOX last night. He says, "You're just quoting Sean Hannity." No, actually, no. This is the Border Patrol. This is their stats. This is the Border Patrol that have not been able to do anything about it.
In February 2017, in the state of Texas, illegal immigrants were responsible for 1,162 homicide charges, 68,151 assault charges, and 6,098 sexual assault charges. Now, of course, Texas, that's not the only state impacted by...
That's just Texas.
Criminal illegal immigrants. In 2015, 36.6% of all federal sentences were given to illegal aliens, including convictions for drug trafficking, kidnapping, and, yes, murder.
Hannity's just quoting statistics that are real.
Now, what I'm about to tell you, you're not going to hear this in the mainstream media. Between 2013 and 2015, despite the dangers we just showed you, the Obama administration released 86,288 criminal illegal immigrants right back into the general U.S. population.
Why? Why did it happen? I don't understand it. Do the Democrats need votes this badly? Is this what it's all about? Like I said, my daughter and my son, they went to Montgomery County schools. And they went through elementary school. They were minorities in their school. And I thought at the beginning, I thought it was great. Hey, man. They had friends of all colors and all sorts of creeds. And it was cool. And it was cool. I didn't mind it. My son's friends, I called them the United Nations. But unfortunately, at my son's school, and we moved back to the Midwest. And at my son's school, gangs are starting to move in. There have been a couple gang-related stabbings. At my son's school in Montgomery County in Germantown, Maryland, home of cul-de-sacs, there's a mall there called Lake Forest Mall. It's almost abandoned at this point. The whole area is economically running down. My home, I lived near Section 8 housing in the worst trailer court in the world. Where a lot of illegal stayed, where the people who robbed my home lived. Now we've got a rape of a 14-year-old girl. And by the way, Montgomery County schools, they say you can allow anybody up to 21 years old to go to school without any questions about any sort of questions about their immigration status. Here's a report from Fox 5 in Washington, D.C.
That Montgomery County Public Schools is open to all, and that also saying that Montgomery County does not take any action.
You can't ask if the 18-year-old has a criminal record.
Regarding regarding immigration, does not ask any questions, does not or participate or report any undocumented students to Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. So that is their policy as far as immigration goes. But when it comes to those other very serious questions we have about what would be an appropriate educational setting, why these older students are mixed in with the youngest of students, the most vulnerable, those freshmen who are brand new to high school. Those are the questions we are trying to get answers on and have not been able to get any so far this morning. In addition to the superintendent, I did reach out to every single school board member, inviting them to come here and talk to us this morning.
Now, isn't that typical? Administrators not saying anything. There was a very angry meeting at this school. There was parents are outraged that this could happen to one person and terrified that it could happen to their kids. And I got to tell you, I'd feel the same way. Here are some of the questions that Montgomery County and this school are not asking, according to Fox 5.
Some of those questions include, why are 17 and 18-year-old boys allowed to be freshmen with freshman girls as young as 14? Are students forced out of school at a certain age? Can they?
Now, just can a white kid who was born and raised in Montgomery County or anywhere walk into a school at age 18 and say, I want to be a freshman in school? I want to know.
Stay into whatever age until they finish classes. Did the school district know that one of the suspects has a deportation order against him?
Yeah.
How are unaccompanied minors who attend Montgomery County Public Schools monitored and tracked in school? What exactly is being done to ensure safety of the students in the future?
Well, they're not doing it in the Maryland General Asylum. They're doing just the opposite. They're blaming the victim. And they're making it easier for people like this 17 and 18-year-old, to come to Montgomery County and sign up for school and commit crime. Honestly, it's stunning. It's stunning. I'm glad my kid's not going to school there anymore. And I hate to say that. We had 9 wonderful years there, have wonderful friends there, and I'm glad my kids aren't there anymore, to be quite honest. And I hate to say that. When I first moved, I was like, oh, man, I don't want to move. I love living here. This is great. And I realized a few things. I saw the violence that was starting to permeate my son's school. And I also noticed that my daughter was a C and D student. And I'm thinking, maybe she's got some issues. And I came to Kansas City area. And I put my daughter and my son in the Overland Park School District. And I remember the first quarter that my daughter was there, I came in and the teachers gave my daughter a PowerPoint presentation on my daughter. And I expected when I was called to the school, what they're going to do is they're going to tell me that she has ADD and she needs to be on medication. That was my immediate thought. I thought that they were going to tell me. And I was girding myself to defend her. And I said, we're not going to consider any ADD meds. And we're not going to do that. We're not going to. No. Your daughter's got some issues, but here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. And they, in a year, almost 2 years, have turned her into a 5A and 2B student. Now, one of the reasons why my daughter was underperforming in her school was, and this has happened all over Montgomery County and other areas, when you have immigrants who are flowing in illegally, who are not learning the language, their children don't know the language, you've got to slow everything down for them. And that includes slowing things down for your kids. That's what happens. That's what happened to my daughter. When she moved here, she was so far behind. She was in 5th grade and had 3rd grade reading skills and 2nd grade math skills. Now she's up to speed. They saved her academically. I have no doubt, and it's been reported that when 7 languages have to be taught in a school, and everything in my family or in my school, every time I went to my daughter's school, when you went in for meetings, they were in several languages. And sorry, Mom and Dad, learn English. Learn English. All right, let's move on from the idiocy in Montgomery County to some other things. Let's talk about idiocy in the across the pond. We know now that 5 people are dead, 40 people injured. We know that there is an Islamist terrorist who was responsible for it. He's a 52-year-old, was a 52-year-old. Khalid Massoud, father of three, was probed by MI5 some years ago over links to violent extremism. The prime minister said he was a peripheral character, and consequently, they stopped monitoring him, and this is what happened. Now, she is pursing her words the day after, 2 days after one of the worst attacks on British soil. And there have been others. Remember the double-decker bus about a decade ago with the tops blown off? And that's why they use the word bloody all the time in Great Britain. You know, bloody streets, bloody buses. She's decided to take on the role of a theologian. Theresa May says, it's wrong to describe this as Islamic terrorism. It is Islamist terrorism. It's a great perversion of faith. The importance of all our faiths work together and recognizes the values that we share. The act of terror was not an act of faith. It was a perversion, a warped ideology, which leads to acts of terrorism like that and will not prevail. Again, here she is. She is not only assuming the role of theologian, but also lecturing. So don't think badly of it, children. This is not about Islam. It's about Islamists. It's not Islamic terrorism. It's terrorism. Not even terrorism. It's man-made disasters in this country, right? Islamism is generally defined as a political interpretation of Islam. Some critics argue Islam is intrinsically political. I agree. The Quran mandates a religious state and law and says the term is relevant. Khalid Mahmood, Labour MP for the Birmingham Perry Bar, whatever the hell that is, said the attacker or attackers pretend to be part of a particular religion. That would be Islam. If they were a religion, they would not carry out acts like this. Tariq Sadiq, Labour MP for another organization, says people who commit acts of terrorism in the name of Islam do not speak for the majority of Muslims in this country. There's a picture that's gone viral of a woman walking calmly past the bodies on the bridge in a hijab, looking at her iPhone. I think that there are many who would not actually commit the acts of terror, but would be silent when they do happen and would tacitly endorse them and say that terror is a way to further their cause. And I believe that that is growing massively in Great Britain. That is growing in France and in Germany. And every time we hear one of these damned attacks and bodies are strewn in the streets and people die in the most horrific fashion. By the way, one of the people who died in this attack was a student at a school in Great Britain or in France, and a teacher from that school was killed in the big Paris nightclub shooting a couple years ago. I'll get the details on that. I had it here. Oh, and then in Belgium, by the way, in Antwerp, there was a man in a car. He targeted a popular shopping street in the city, and he went at a crowd at high speed, forcing pedestrians to jump away. Military officers managed to stop the attack, avoid disaster. A man in camouflage was taken away. A North African man. The vehicle was loaded with weapons, knives. There was a chemical substance in there as well. So, you know, here we go. This is the movement. This is the modus operandi of radical Islam right now, running over people. And no matter how many times these things happen, you still have idiots like the mayor of London saying of the attack, Mayor Sadiq Khan, telling his citizens that terrorist attacks are part and parcel, a part of living in the big city. You're safer in London than you've ever been. Turns out this act to be if it turns out this act to be an act of terrorism, I think the fact that the man is a Muslim is utterly and completely irrelevant. You are sheep being led to the slaughter, mister. A sheep being led to the slaughter. Unbelievable. And they had already, MI5 was on this guy. How many times do we need to hear this? Sarnia brothers. How many times do we need to know that they were being surveilled, they were being studied for radical Islam, and the attack goes ahead and happens anyway? You see the same thing going on here. You've got You've got Montgomery County, Maryland, after illegals have been allowed to come into the state and they have murdered their way and committed crimes and raped this girl in a school bathroom. They had already been marked for deportation. They'd already been studied by authorities, and they were allowed to stay, and they committed a crime. And then what does Montgomery County do? They make the state a sanctuary state. I should say not Montgomery County, but the state. Same thing happens in Great Britain. There's a murder committed by a sizable portion of the Muslim community, supported by the a sizable number of the Muslim community in Europe and France, because the reason they're going there is because they want to spread Sharia law. So as much as you'd like to say, it's just a lone wolf. It ain't a lone wolf. It's a movement. It is a movement in Europe. What happens the next day? The same sheep that exist in the Maryland Assembly exist in politics in London. It's really just quite stunning. quite stunning how stupid some people can be. But we soldier on, and we realize that we have a president who's going to keep fighting the fight. Oh, by the way, Eric Hawkins, spokesman for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, confirmed Thursday that a guy named Kirk Cochran was one of the victims in the incident. He and his wife, Melissa, she was injured. They were in London for their 25th wedding anniversary and were scheduled to come back to the United States on Thursday. Melissa was seriously injured. They go to Great Britain for a dream trip of a lifetime, 25 years, and now she will spend the rest of her life suffering the mental and physical injuries without the husband she had committed to for life. But don't worry, it's not a part of the religion of peace. Not a part of the religion of peace. You know, I think I'm going to wrap it up on this because it's important. It's important to learn. It's important to point out the obvious. It's important to, no matter what is being said, and listen, I'm not a giant Donald Trump supporter, but I think that one thing he has very right is the vetting of immigrants who come here and the closing of the border. I wish Maryland could learn that lesson. Unfortunately, we have the general asylum to deal with. Okay, I'm going to wrap things up right now, guys, for episode number 55. Number 56 coming up very soon. If you'd like to check me out on the web, go to robcarsonshow.com. If you would like to check out the Facebook page, again, it is Rob Carson Show. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again very soon.
Thanks for listening to The Rob Carson Show. Friend him on Facebook at Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and on Instagram, I think Facebook and Twitter are enough for now. We'll see you soon.